Hello and welcome to the first video tutorial for Dart 100. Hopefully you have been able to successfully access Photoshop. Either you already had it or you were able to get it from the adobe.com website and download the app and have that installed. So I'd like you to follow along with me. Open up Photoshop and it should look something kind of like this. Instead of having your recent images, obviously you wouldn't have that because you haven't opened these images, but you probably have some things talking about some tutorials or telling you about what's new in the latest version. And we're going to kind of pass on looking through that right now. To be able to follow along with me, I would like you to open up some images. Hopefully you have something already on your computer. What I would recommend is that you have a folder for this class, a Dart 100 folder, and you start putting some images right into that. So I already have my Dart 100 folder set up. So for right now, just any images that you have. So pause this, get some images, set up a folder, Dart 100, put them in there, and then come back. So the next thing is to open up a couple of images. When I first open up Photoshop, this is the way the interface looks like, and there's this great big open button, and I can click on that and browse for an image I want to open up, and I click on it and hit open. And so now you can see the interface changes. So the next time when I want to open up an image, I do have to go up to File, Open. So let's open a couple of images, because I'd like you to see how they all line up in Photoshop as tabs. So I'll open up another one. These are some past student examples of various projects we will be working on throughout the semester. Okay, so hopefully you have a few images opened up, and the first thing I'd like you to notice is the tabs up at the top here. So when I want to work on an image, I just simply select the tab. The tab gives us some valuable information. So if we look at this image, it tells me the name of the file and its extension. This is a JPEG, and the percent in which I'm viewing it. I'm viewing this at 100%. That's useful to know because, for example, this image, I'm only viewing it at 33%. So these two may look like they're the same size, but if I tried to print them out, this image would actually be much, much larger. I'll zoom in until we see it at 100%. Keep going here, and now it's at 100%. So if you have a large image, what Photoshop does when you first open it up is it automatically zooms out. So that way you can see it on the screen, but you're not seeing it at 100%. So the takeaway is never really trust the view, the size that you're seeing your image here. That's not really a good representation of how large your image actually is. You need to look at it at 100%. So these images are Photoshop files. The .psd tells me that they're Photoshop files. The other thing that they're telling me is that the color mode is set to RGB. And that's going to be important for our very first homework assignment, where we're going to actually change the color mode to grayscale and then change it back to RGB. So if you ever open up an image that's black and white, and I don't actually have an example here, well, this image was black and white, and you try to paint onto it some color and it won't work, go up here and check that this is in the RGB color mode. And we'll talk about how to change that if it's not. Okay, so that's opening up images. The next thing I'd like to point out, it's the toolbar. So yours might be in a different location. It might be set to 2 bars. You can change it. You can move it around. So here's our toolbar. This is something you'll be using an awful lot. It's kind of sectioned off. The first tool here, the Move tool, you will be using this all the time to be able to move things around. Also notice that when I hover over all of these, I get little tutorial options to be able to watch how to use them, which you're welcome to do. These next 3 tools are different kinds of selection tools. And what I'd like you to pause and take a moment to go through is to notice if I click on any one of them, I see that I can actually switch from the default selection tool to a different one. So you can go through and see that there are lots of different types of selection tools. Selection tools are really important in Photoshop. Sorry, I selected that by accident, because we won't do it in the very beginning, but what we will be doing is isolating objects and applying effects just to them. So we do that with this selection tool. Then we have the crop tool, which is also very important. And then we have a selection of different retouching tools, eraser tool. Here's our gradient tool, and if I click on that, I can also get to the paintbrush, the paint bucket tool. Then we have some kind of effects tools we're not really going to use a whole lot, dodging and burning and smudging. And our text tools, this section here, these are vectors. We'll get into that a little bit more. And down towards the bottom we have our navigation tools. So I can take the magnifying glass to click and zoom way in, and then I could take the hand tool and now move that part of the image that I'm looking at around. You can also do the same thing with the space bar. Back to my magnifying tool. If I now want to be able to zoom out, I go up to the options bar and I can switch that from a zoom in to a zoom out. There's also a keyboard shortcut, and that is Option if you're on a Mac and Alt if you are on a PC, to be able to switch back and forth. You can see I'm holding down the key and I'm switching back and forth between the two. All of these tools, when you select them, there's a contextual toolbar up here called the options bar. It changes based on the tool that you have selected. So for example, if I take my paintbrush tool, I now have options up here to be able to adjust my paintbrush. So we kind of always take a tool and then we go up to the options bar and we explore what can be altered. In terms of the main menu, this is pretty straightforward. Under File, we have things like New and Open and Save, Save As, Save a Copy. That's pretty familiar from other programs. Under Edit, we have things like Copy and Paste, but hopefully you will get comfortable doing that with keyboard shortcuts. And we have some other effects. The one we will be working with the most will be Transform. Under Image, Image Mode, this is where we can go to switch from a grayscale to color. And there are a lot of fun things here under Adjustments. We'll be spending time going through all of these different sections here. The one that I want to point out right from the beginning is under Window is Workspace. I am working under the Essentials workspace. So if your layout looks a little bit different, you might want to check to see if you are also working on the Essentials workspace. What these do is basically just change the panels that you have open. If you look here, this is the list of all the panels I could have open, and the ones that have the check marks next to them are the ones that are currently open. So if I close a panel by accident, let's say I close my history panel by accident and I want to get it back, I can go up here and I can open up my history panel, which happened to be connected with my layers panel as well. Okay, so under Window, this is where you can go and explore more panels, and if you by accident close a panel, you can get it back over here. Speaking of panels, over here are two panels that we use an awful lot, the history panel and the layers panel. So if you don't have the history panel open, go up to Window and select History. You should have the layers panel open. Now these panels, I can minimize them, I can dock them, make them small. So you can take a minute and just explore, like physically moving them around or shrinking them up or expanding them, doing things like that. But these two are the ones that you'll want to have open the most. When I dock the history panel, this is the icon that shows up, and then I can get it to appear again. Here in the layers panel, along with the history panel, there are some icons at the bottom that we will be exploring. And so several of the things that you have here you can get to through the menu buttons up here, but I'm going to encourage you to use the icons down here at the bottom of the layers panel. So that's basically the interface. Oh, I will point out this contextual toolbar down here. This is mostly for using AI generated content, which we might talk about a little bit, but I really want you to learn some of the backbones of how to work with Photoshop before we get into any AI generated content.